I can go grab a guitar if you want, Luke. That'll help.
Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. So we'll do some introductions to begin with, and we'll start from there if that's okay.
So I'm Louise, I'm Website Success's strategist.
Hi, my name's Beth. I'm Head of Digital Marketing at Website Success.
And I'm Dan, and I'm the Creative Director at Website Success, and I make everything look nice and pretty.
So kind of in a nutshell, what is it that Website Success does?
Well, we basically create a presence online for companies in a nutshell. We started off as a web development company and very quickly got wind of the fact that there's no point having a website unless you tell people it's there. And that obviously grew into the digital marketing side of the business. And now there's a good 50-50 split in terms of clients that we only do web development for, and clients that we actually develop a site for and then manage their ongoing marketing as well. We're also offering more of Dan's design services. So as he mentioned, offline and online design. So actually the whole marketing shebang at Website Success now.
As some people will be aware, today we've been posting lots of things about our brand new website, which you guys have been really key and instrumental in making happen. So we just thought today it'd be really exciting to meet with some of the team. This isn't all of the team, but some of the team have made this website possible. So I just thought we would throw out some questions to you guys, get your insight, get a bit of experience, learn experience from you guys of this project. So people who may never have come across you or would never need to come across you can find out a little bit more about your involvement, and maybe people who just hear your heart for what's happened in this project might think, oh great, what a lovely bunch of people to work with. So we'll start off, like, have any of you guys had experience of dementia?
This is an interesting question because we all have, haven't we? Dan, do you want to go first on this?
Yeah, I mean, I had to think about it, Luke, when I was sent that question, and I thought, have I? I don't think I have. And then I remembered my granddad, and it was such a shocking experience for me. My granddad, he was always full of life and cracking jokes, and just out of the blue, for me anyway, out of the blue, on this one occasion, he was telling us this story, and we sort of all chuckled. And then 5 minutes later, he told us the story again, exactly the same. And I was waiting for that. I was just waiting for that little sort of sideways smile and wink from him, you know, like this is some kind of joke, and nothing. And then about 5 minutes later, he said it for a third time. And for me, I wasn't really sure what was going on, but I obviously knew that it was something to do with his memory. And it was quite shocking, distressing, and frightening would be a word I'd use. Yeah. I was quite frightened because this wasn't my granddad. This was like, hang on, what's going on here? This isn't the man that I know and love. And but the other thing that really struck me was how little I knew about it, and no one told me. So they didn't tell me the reason. Like I still to this day don't know what he died of. It was just he had dementia and he died. I'm like, what is dementia? What is this? And it's really only since being involved in this project that I've really got to understand about dementia. So that's my story.
Thanks, man.
And Beth, you've had direct experience as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so my great aunt and uncle both have dementia. I'm not sure what type, but basically they started getting worse and worse over the years, and they were still living at home in their little house in Surrey where they've always lived, and things were getting worse. The neighbours kept ringing my mum being like, well, they're doing this today, the ambulance is here again. So yeah, we went down and saw them and realised how much they'd both deteriorated, and that's quite sad. They didn't know who I was anymore. They know me as little Bethan, who used to run around the house at 6 years old and paint pictures in their garden, and they used to take us to like feed the ducks and all of the usual stuff. But we're a very close family, so I know they're my great aunt and uncle, but they were like an aunt and uncle to me. But I just didn't know what was going on. It was really hard listening to them speak and like repeat themselves over and over, and you're having to answer them the same response, but you're trying not to get like wound up with it because they don't know, they've genuinely forgot. But I didn't know what it was. I didn't know where to search for it or what I could do to help them or help them try and remember me. I was like, it's Bethan, like, but no, they didn't know. So they're in care now, full-time care in a care home in Eastbourne, but I'm hoping we will get to go and see them again this year, but we haven't for about 2 years because of the COVID situation.
Yeah, I mean, Luke, I have a similar story. My grandmother was a very old grandmother. She had my mum quite late in her life, and I was an impatient child, and I got irritated by her repetitive querying and questioning, and but she would also, what I now in hindsight realize was dementia and not just a bad memory. She used to say things like, so do they, I was about to go into her German accent, I won't do that, so do they have it's best I don't. But she used to say, do they have chairs in your school, Louise? And of course my brother and I like, but already now I know a little bit more, Luke, partly thanks to you teaching us. But I realized it wasn't actually just a memory thing. It was also a disconnect with current life, reality, maybe the areas of history, etc. So for me it was just knowing there was something wrong with Granny. Didn't really understand what or why or how, and certainly as children didn't have patience with it. So I think I fear we were a bit cruel in hindsight. But yeah, so we do, all of us in the office actually discuss this, and we have all got a story. Yes, Luke.
It's really interesting because I think, me kind of, my journey of like kind of ending up working here at Dementia Support started out with, dating somebody who was working for the Alzheimer's Society. And at that point, being much younger and probably being quite cruel about the type of people that were there, because I just didn't understand the concept. I was just like, just remind them, like as if like that's the thing, that's the answer to it. And then kind of working in other places and kind of realizing that close friends of mine were experiencing something to do with dementia and just thinking like, oh, this affects everybody. This is really weird. Like, it's not just, people in a, in a charitable sector that are suffering. It's like, oh, it's like, this manager over here, my best friend over here, and then, my mother-in-law working, and just sort of seeing this range of people and just thinking, my goodness, this is really hard. Like, this is just so affects everyone. And then working here and that just being really confounded that it doesn't really matter where you come from, who you are, your background. It's like, this just can affect anyone, which is such an eye-opening experience. I think it's really great to kind of hear those and kind of be able to share that with other people who might be listening to this and thinking like, oh, actually that's a really similar experience, and I was a bit afraid to say anything, but hopefully that'd be really exciting, really helpful for people. So thank you, I appreciate that. So moving on a little bit to the website that you're all here to talk about. What were the hurdles you came across when thinking about this website?
Okay, well, I'll kick this off because again we've sort of rallied a few responses from our different areas of the business, and I mean, certainly for me as a strategist, it was about making sure that we had the right approach for your audience, and yet we're able to contain the huge raft of information and resources and facts and figures that you needed to get across. So it was actually getting the easy navigation to what is actually an extensive resource library, if you like. So that certainly for me was a key challenge strategically. And then Dan, obviously you and I work closely on how a website needs to be directed. So your hurdles.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know if this is the right answer to the question, but I'll say it anyway. For me, it was a no-brainer. As soon as I walked in that first meeting that we had at Sage House, and as soon as you mentioned zones, coloured zones, because it's easier to direct people to a coloured zone than give them directions. That as soon as you said that, I'm like, right, this is the basis of the site. We've got to base the site around directing people in that way. And then we went on a great long journey to get there, which was one of the best, honestly, probably the best experience I've had working on a website since I've been doing this 30 odd years, I think. God. Yeah, and the process was brilliant, and the involvement with you guys as well. It was great. So I don't know if that's the right answer for that question, but, or we're going to come on to that in a bit.
That's fine. We can meander through these questions. There's no worries too much. But just to kind of back up, I think it was I think that was the process, that the design process. Like, you know, when you said, well, that was like the idea, we landed that. We still iterated that idea quite a few times, didn't we?
Yeah.
Like on what the zones kind of looked like. And actually, we kind of went through a few processes, one that kept rearing its head every step of the way, but ultimately landing on what we've now got, and just sort of seeing how that worked really, really brilliantly with our physical location. It was really great to see that happen.
It was great because we had the idea, but it was like, how are we going to get this to work now? And that whole process was fantastic to end up where we ended up, exactly how we envisaged it. But at the start we were like, well, we've got an idea, but how do we get there?
Yeah, how do we get there?
And the thing for me, the thing that gave me, and it actually gave me goosebumps, was when Sally sat in that Zoom meeting, and said, and I think there was a couple of other people in there, or there was one other person from Dementia Support, and she was explaining how, like, what we'll do is we'll tell someone, you go to this orange zone, and it honestly gave me goosebumps, because it's like, that is exactly what I wanted. That was my vision when I stood in Sage House a year ago, or whenever it was. And for Sally to then reiterate that, I'm like, well, that's it. It works. This is fantastic. So So for me, it's such a sense of achievement, this one, because we had an idea, wasn't sure how it was gonna evolve, but it evolved, and it evolved perfectly in the right way. Yeah, in my eye.
Yeah. And Beth, you had some hurdles though, didn't you? Interestingly, from a digital marketing perspective.
Yes. So the challenges that we had in my team was on the keyword research side. Mm-hmm. So it was so interesting to carry out that research as to what users were actually searching for, what they needed the answers to. We had this big old sheet of keywords that had low search volume or really high search volume, and it was trying to figure out what we wanted to optimize the site for and what Dementia Support wants to show up for on Google, but also making sure that the keywords and questions were already throughout the site in their information and resources, because that's what Dementia Support want to be. They want to be the information hub of where you can find out more, which is kind of linked to what all of our stories were, that we didn't have anywhere to find out more. And it was also another challenge was making sure that the site was going to be found. Am I right in saying, Luke, that Dementia Support had never been optimized? The site before was yeah,
and it's totally right. And I think, and you guys know this, there'd been a few delays throughout, and it was always, because ultimately, like, the heart of the charity is to support people. And Sally would say time and time again, she'd rather throw money at supporting people than she would at anything else. Like, as a charity, we want to support people, but it's now kind of getting to that place where we're like, okay, there's a way of us supporting more people, and the way we can do that is through the website and drawing people to us or providing information. So it was like a time thing, but yeah, you are absolutely right.
Yeah, so that was like quite a big piece of work from our point of view, and could have been a little bit of a challenge, but it wasn't. But we just needed to make sure that everything was set up and optimized the right way, for the right terms that we decided on.
Lovely. So I mean, Dan's kind of has touched on it a little bit, but did any of you have like a favorite part of the process? Because you guys do websites a lot, but was there anything different or anything that just really like, I really like this?
Dan, do you mind if I stand up and say, because Dan and I have been liaising on this question.
I wonder if you're going to say the same thing as me, Louis.
Well, possibly, Dan. I think what Dan and I really, really appreciated about you, Luke, and Sally, but everybody at Dementia Support, is that you were just so open to anything interesting, innovative, new. You didn't have a set frame in your mind of what your website needed to look like, and it's so rare for us, because we normally have a client that says, right, I want my website to be like this, because they want to be like a competitor, for instance. So sometimes it's a fairly rigid, not always the right way forwards for a website, but it's a rigid set phrase that they want us to follow, whereas I think Dan and I particularly enjoyed that you guys came to us with a blank sheet of paper. I mean, Dan, that was your excitement, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think from memory, because it's about a year ago now, I walked into Sage House that first time thinking, well, I've got literally there's nothing. It is like Louis said, a blank piece of paper. And then as soon as I started speaking to you guys and walking around the place, that's when these ideas started coming. And you could quite easily have just poo-pooed them straight away, said no, not interested in those ideas, but you didn't. You just kept saying, yep, keep it coming, keep telling us what liking this, and it's great. And not once, we're always waiting for that one person to go, no, don't like this, but it didn't happen. It was such a joy.
Yeah. And Dan, I mean, you've said to me that you're particularly proud of the work that you were allowed to do on the site, haven't you? And that you felt that it really enabled you to be so creative, is one of the things you've said to me.
And it also took the pressure off it, because I don't know if this is a case. I think it's possibly a case with creatives in general. But if there's pressure, if there's any sort of pressure, whether it's time scale or brief, then it kind of crushes that creativity completely. So because there was no pressure at all from you guys, it allowed me to be really, really creative. And like some of the ideas, and it wasn't just me, it was all of us, including you, Luke, and even Sally to a certain degree, throwing ideas into the pot and then coming up with solutions. And most of the time, the solutions were pretty much the ideas. They weren't like, well, yeah, we can't really, we'll make do with that. Like, make do's a good one. We didn't make do, in my opinion. We did what we wanted. We did exactly what we envisaged. We didn't just make do. And that, to me, was the best thing. Just that we're all just pulling in the same direction, and it was great. And we found ways. If we had an idea, it's like, we will find a way of doing this. There's got to be a way of doing this, and we did. We've done just that. And this is phase one. There's, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. You can edit this.
Yeah, go for it.
But,
if you say too much, I'll cut it out.
But there are phases to come that will take it even further. This site, Yeah.
I think one of the benefits of talking to you guys early on was that it's so we live and breathe, every member of staff here lives and breathes dementia, and the idea that we want to be there for people from pre-diagnosis to end of life, which ultimately is what happens. And so sometimes we can get caught up in our own heads, and we say phrases like, that's totally normal, and and actually talking to people outside of that environment, which is kind of the freedom that we realized we wanted to allow, was actually you got to challenge some of, and maybe even at that point, like challenging some of our preconceived ideas of what we wanted, because that's just what we think should happen. But actually being able to talk to professionals like yourselves, and you guys being able to guide us and kind of say, this is our suggestion based on this, and us being able to go away and think about it and be like, that's a really great idea. We really like that idea. So thank you for your creativity as well. It was really helpful.
You're very welcome.
I'd say my favorite part was actually working with you guys as a client. It's just been really, really great. and it's very, yeah, or you're always open to ideas. We share the frustration when we don't like what people are using to search for certain things, or we just don't know why Google is doing certain things. But no, I think, and then seeing and visiting you guys at Sage House was just incredible. And yeah, that's what really inspired me to get like fully involved, because I just thought, yeah, what you guys do is just amazing. And I think, yeah, this working with like Dan and Jane, I think this is honestly one of the best sites Website Success has created. I think it looks so good and so creative, and I just hope that we can analyze that properly now in terms of like user journey perspective, and I hope that the users are finding it as easy to use as like we say that we want them to. So yeah.
Amazing. So I guess final question is, what do you think the biggest concerns with regards to, what do you think the biggest concerns are with regards to dementia?
Well, that's a huge
It's a big question, I'm very aware. So
my personal feeling is, I think what actually terrifies me is the reach that dementia has. It, as we have all become more exposed personally to it, as we age, I think what terrifies me is that this touches everybody. There's no discrimination here, and I think that is a bit scary. I personally feel relieved that dementia support and some of your collaborators and partners are spreading more information and providing the resources and things. So as a consumer who may be a consumer of dementia in some form or another, I appreciate the work that you guys are doing. And I know Dan and Beth have both responded as well to this. Beth, you've got some thoughts, haven't you?
Yeah, so my biggest concerns is that I don't think people realise that they actually have it. Like my great aunt and uncle did not have a clue, and neither did we, and we didn't even recognise that it was that. So that's quite terrifying. And that, like, my great aunt was like the smartest person ever. She was like a science teacher as well. So I'm like, oh gosh, that is so cruel how she's gone from such amazing teaching to not even knowing who we all are anymore, and just going back to the memories of them living in Wales, which was so long ago. So that really scares me. And is there actually a cure yet? I don't think there is. I think you can help with certain things, but there's no cure, and that is so scary. So yeah, they're my biggest concerns.
Well, I've got two things. One was just how complex dementia is. I walked into Sage House that first time thinking it was just a loss of memory, and some of the stuff you told me, Luke, was quite an eye opener. Really, quite shocked me. You know, the thing that shocked me the most was the panic of people living with dementia. And the two things that really struck me, the two things that stayed in my mind, was the thing about the mirrors, where you can't have mirrors because they see themselves and freak out, and the thresholds in the doorways being light and not dark. Now it was so far removed from what I thought dementia was that it properly shocked me. I was like, wow, people need to be aware of this. Dementia isn't just about repeating yourself, about forgetting things. It's so much more than that. And the other thing that really struck me was just how much it affects the other person or the other people around the person living with dementia. You know, how much it just drains them as well, and how exhausting it is for them. So how the Sage House and what you guys are doing is such a relief to them, and such a haven, and like a what did I call it? You know, somewhere to go and just recoup really, and get some help and just guidance. So yeah, they were the two things that really struck me when I got involved, started to get involved with this. but really the main thing for me though was just how complex this thing is, and I think people need to know this. People need to understand that it isn't just about losing your memory.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today and having this conversation. If you want to see the brilliant work that these guys have created, there is definitely going to be a link below, but also www.dementiasupport.org.uk, and you can see all the hard work that's gone into making the information that we've been talking about, the resources we've been talking about, our services that we've been talking about available online. You can see our zones, you can see 3D tour of Sage House that Dan's been talking about. But also, if any of the stories that Beth, Dan or Louise have been talking about, if any of that like rings true in your life, in your family, talk to us, give us a call, chat with us. You know, we have Wayfinders. It's an incredible service. It's totally free, and they're there to support you through the full journey. There's no commitment. You can just talk once, you can talk twice, you can just talk every week if you want, but we are there for you. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for talking us through the website. Thank you for talking us through your experiences. It's lovely working with you, and as Dan was already kind of spoken about, look forward to continuing working with you as well.
Brilliant.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Take care.
Cheers, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.